The five-element ruins seemed as if it had evaporated into thin air and vanished from sight. What emerged before the eyes of everyone in its wake was the scorching and burning sunlight, the piercingly cold blades of strong wind, and the boundless sea of sand that continued on everywhere the eye could reach. But no one paid attention to all this at this moment, as they only needed to know that this place was still the oceanic desert. Their gazes stared fixedly at Xianxia and were on guard against the others at all times, and the atmosphere at the scene was still heavy to the point of being oppressive. "Everyone, please withdraw yourselves." This person had seized a six-winged blood dragonbat inner core of my white crane sect. "An eye for an eye, I, Xianxia, am determined to acquire the magic treasure in his hand. Anyone who interferes is making an enemy of my white crane sect." Right within this heavy atmosphere, Xianxia spoke out indifferently, and the arrogance within her words wasn't concealed in the slightest. The expressions of the others went slightly grim, yet Huangfu Chongming grunted coldly. "Xianxia, isn't your white crane sect a bit too overbearing? Before such an opportunity, everyone who witnessed it deserves a share. No matter how formidable your white crane sect is, all of us will absolutely not allow you to acquire all the benefits by yourself. What does everyone say about this?" Young Prince Huangfu is correct. It's true that the White Crane sect is well renowned in the Central Plains, but my Eastern Seas dragon shark Isle isn't afraid of it as well. "Xianxia, I've heard since long ago that you're a reincarnated heavenly immortal with unfathomable strength. Perhaps I'll have to ask for some pointers from you today." Right when Huangfu Chongming had just finished speaking, a tall and thin blue-clothed man walked over, and it seemed like a tide was formed beneath his feet, causing wave after wave to surge and push him over. This person held a smile on his face and possessed an unrestrained bearing, causing him to seem exceedingly extraordinary. "Humph, it's indeed so. I, Manhong, have taken a fancy to that kid's body refinement technique. Don't even hope of stopping me today." After that, another rough and heavy voice sounded out. This man possessed thick brows and fierce eyes. He was extremely burly and bared his upper body. Each of his ears had a bone earring hanging on it, and he carried a broadsword that was like a door on his shoulder. He stood amongst the crowd like a small hill, emitting a ferocious and violent aura without the slightest scruple, causing him to seem exceedingly overbearing. The Eastern Seas Dragon Shark Isle's Golden Core Realm Core Disciple, Lu Fengqi. Northern Barbaric Lands Sky Cave Mountains Golden Core Realm Core Disciple, Manhong. These two people had always been hiding within the crowd earlier, and at the instant they stood out at this moment, they were instantly recognized by the other people, causing all of them to be unable to refrain from revealing shocked expressions. She felt fear in his heart as he watched this as well. Originally, he thought that Xianxia's group and Huangfu Chongming's group were already the top two powers present. Yet he never imagined that another two formidable figures had appeared at this moment, causing his heart to instantly feel much heavier. Instantly, the situation underwent a gradual change. The scene evolved into four factions led by Huangfu Chongming, Xianxia, Lu Fengqi, Manhong, and some other cultivators of unknown origin that were scattered all around. When faced with the groups of the four experts, these cultivators without reputation could only temporarily choose to watch coldly from the sidelines. Even though Xianxia's group only possessed 3 people, but because of Xianxia holding down the fort, they vaguely seemed to have become the strongest force. For sides were in confrontation, whereas she was surrounded and trapped in the center. She kept silent and silently utilized his entire strength to suppress the netherworld register. The confrontation of these 4 powers had won a strand of precious time for him, and he wanted to seize this opportunity to properly make a plan. "All right, I admit that all 3 of your groups have the qualifications to participate in this matter." Lu Fengqi and Manhong's appearance had caused Xianxia to seem to have changed her intentions, and she swept the surroundings with her gaze as she said slowly, "But the other people should leave first. There isn't any room for all of you to interfere here, and it's so as to avoid harming your own lives. What do all of you think?" "I agree." Huangfu Chongming nodded. "It couldn't be any better. In this way, can put an end to some people trying to take advantage of the situation and steal from us." Lu Fengqi agreed as well. I don't have any objections. Man Hong laughed loudly. When they saw these 4 groups of people joining forces in the blink of an eye, the crowd was instantly in a state of unrest, and many people revealed slight fear. Especially those people that belonged to some powers and sects. Their expressions had become indeterminate. As the saying goes, a monk may run away, yet the monk couldn't bring the temple along. Offending these 4 groups of people that represented colossi would only bring a calamity of complete annihilation to the powers they belonged to. A cultivator moved backward and cupped his fists to everyone. I have an urgent matter to attend to, so I won't involve myself in this matter. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't spare a second look back as he left. With this person as an example, there were instantly many people that left successively. These people were all disciples from the sects of the Central Plains, Eastern Sea, or Northern Barbaric lands. They understood how formidable the powers these 4 people represented were, and they didn't want to bring a disaster to the powers they belonged to for the sake of seizing treasures. In the time of a few breaths, the number of people in the surroundings had reduced sharply, and only less than a third of the people remained. When they saw this, the remaining people knew that nothing much could be done, and they'd completely lost the chance to take advantage of the situation to steal from these 4 groups later. Thus, they didn't persist any longer and scattered in all directions, and not a single one remained. As for if these people were unwilling to leave and had concealed themselves in the distance while intending to wait for an opportune moment to act was something that couldn't be known. All right, now that only us 4 groups remain, if we start a violent battle for the sake of fighting for the treasures, then it would possibly give this person an opportunity to seize and flee. I think that all of you aren't willing to see that scene happen. So, I suggest all of us join forces to kill him together before deciding on the problem of the ownership of the treasures in his possession. How about it? Qing Shui glanced deeply at Xianxia before speaking, as if she took the matter lightly. This little girl has such a sinister heart. When Xianxia saw this scene, his heart instantly fell to the bottom, as this move of Qing Shui's had practically completely blocked all of the methods of retreat he could think of. He knew that even if he had 1,000 strategies and a myriad of crafty schemes at this moment, he had utterly no room to utilize them under the suppression of absolute strength. Right at this moment, Xianxi's heart jerked abruptly, and his body tensed up involuntarily as a strand of imperceptible fluctuation was like a bolt of lightning as it flashed within his mind. It was the netherworld register in his hand. At this moment, this magic treasure that seemed to possess intelligence seemed to have noticed the desire of the surrounding people towards it, and it stopped struggling and quieted down. Xianxi's spirits were refreshed, and he forcefully restrained the wild joy in his heart. So long as I don't have to divert my attention to suppress the netherworld register, then my chance of escaping would increase greatly, and it wouldn't come to the extent of not having the slightest room to fight back. But what was that fluctuation that flashed within my mind? Xianxia, I can't take it any longer. Right at this moment, Ling Bai abruptly leaped out from the Buddha's pagoda, and he swept the surroundings with an enraged expression as he said coldly, "All of these people look at you like an ant that's at their mercy. Could it be that you aren't enraged?" Xianxi's heart constricted as he never imagined that Ling Bai would actually foolishly leap out. Ling Bai possessed the Nirvana Sword Dao. Ling Bai was always worried about being noticed by others and bringing boundless calamities onto Xianxia. However, at this moment, Ling Bai had instead appeared publicly by himself and exposed himself. Could it be that this little fellow has gone mad? But when he heard Ling Bai's words, Xianxia instantly went silent. He recalled the attitude Lin Moshuan, Xiao Linger, and Huangfu Chongming treated him with all along the way. Those expressions of disregard, gazes of disdain, and commanding actions. Can I really laugh it off and not care about it? I don't need to obtain the acknowledgement of others, but should I just swallow the humiliation I suffer and ignore my dignity that was trampled on for my entire life? Only daring to be angry yet not dare say a word? Dare to think yet dare not take action? A cage can't trap my heart. Shackles can't confine my body. My Tao is freedom, the freedom to soar in the 9 heavens. How could I dare forget it? How could I dare forget it? Xianxi's eyes became brighter and brighter as his entire mind and soul seemed to have broken through its shackles and leaped out of its cage. At this moment, he wasn't afraid of everything any longer, and he yearned for battle. No matter how weak an ant is, it has already transcended above all living beings by possessing the resolution to shake a large tree. No matter how lowly an ant is, it's already looking down at the world by possessing the heart of an eagle. Young one, you've already won my respect, so let me lend you a hand. Ha ha ha. After dreaming for a myriad of years, who can talk about the times with me? Who can talk about the rise and fall of the world with me? Sigh, sigh, sigh. Everything has been delivered into samsara? A bleak and hoarse voice abruptly exploded out in Xianxia's sea of consciousness, and the words spoken by the voice revealed boundless heroism and sadness. Bang! Right at the instant this voice resounded out, the netherworld register that was like a book seemed to have had a page opened, and a vast and exceedingly heavy peculiar energy gushed into Xianxia's body with a bang. At this moment, no one noticed that an unbelievable change was occurring within Xianxia's body. Senior sister, I was speaking about this little thing. He possesses a body like a magic treasure and controls a formidable sword insight, and he's extremely peculiar. If it wasn't for his help on that day, that six-winged blood dragon bat's inner core would have been seized by me since a long time ago. As soon as Pei Chong saw Ling Bai, he instantly spoke swiftly to Qing Shui. Could this be another immortal artifact's spirit? Qing Shui's eyes were suffused with a strange brilliance as she spoke with slight surprise. An immortal artifact's spirit? The others were shocked in their hearts when they heard this, and their gazes that revealed burning greed descended onto the 10 centimeters tall Ling Bai in unison. A book-shaped magic treasure that seems like it was made of jade yet isn't, and contains extreme intelligence, and a 10 centimeters little person that possesses the body of a magic treasure and controls a sword insight. These two treasures are possibly immortal artifacts, and coupled with the miraculous body refinement technique he cultivates, exactly how many rare treasures are in the possession of this fellow at the Golden Core realm? Xianxia? Could it be that youth that acquired the top rank in the Hidden Dragon rankings and subdued the Buddha's pagoda? Tantai Hong was shocked in his heart as he noticed the name Ling Bai used to address Xianxia, and he almost didn't believe his ears as he exclaimed in shock. What? The Buddha's pagoda that no one in your southern territory was able to subdue is in the possession of this kid as well? Doesn't that mean that there might be 3 immortal artifacts in this kid's possession? I remember now. When I arrived at the southern territory, I heard people saying that a youth had subdued the Buddha's pagoda that stood loftily in Dragon Lake City for countless years. Yet I never imagined it was this kid. 3 immortal artifacts. If those old freaks that live in seclusion were to find out, they probably wouldn't hesitate in the slightest to seize it from him, right? When they heard Tantai Hong, the 4 groups that were present instantly went into an uproar. The gazes they shot at Xianxia seemed as if they were staring at a plump sheep that caused one to drool without end and emitted fatal temptation that no one was able to refuse. Xianxia felt as if his body was about to explode. The energy that was transmitted out from the netherworld register was like a boundless and mighty ocean, and when compared with his own true essence, his true essence was simply like a small stream. It was a difference of more than 1,000,000 times. This energy was mysterious, deep, and revealed a powerless feeling that caused one to sink into oblivion. And it seemed as if one's life and death weren't in one's control any longer. This was the aura of the netherworld register, and he'd once seen it on Su Leng. But the nether Dao insight Su Leng comprehended was too shallow and weak, and it was like a tiny pearl that couldn't compare in brightness with the sun and moon. In the blink of an eye, Xianxia had lost control of his own body without the slightest room to struggle. He instead seemed like an onlooker, like someone whose soul had left its body and didn't belong to this body any longer. Why has this happened? Who did that voice from before belong to? But, according to what he said, he seems to have no ill intent towards me. You're called Xianxia, right? Hand over that magic treasure in your hand and I'll leave right away, and I guarantee to not look for trouble with you in the future. Right at this moment, Qing Shui frowned as she spoke. In her eyes, although Xianxia, who was surrounded at the center by all of them, had a calm expression, he revealed a trace of a strange aura that was indescribable, and this strand of aura caused her to feel uneasy. So, she didn't dare delay any longer. Miss Qing, Didn't you say we'd kill this kid first before distributing the treasures? If it's like this, then I want that 10 centimeters tall little person. Huangfu Chongming pointed at Ling Bai, who was on Xianxi's shoulder as he spoke unhurriedly. Humph. I want the Buddha's pagoda. The Buddha's pagoda is mine. Lu Fengqi from the Eastern Sea's Dragonshark Isle and Man Hong from the Northern Barbaric Lands' Sky Cave Mountain spoke at almost the exact same time, and as soon as they finished speaking, both of them glared angrily at each other as they smiled coldly without end. It was as if they would start a violent battle if the slightest disagreement were to occur. Chen Shi, did you hear what I said earlier? Looks at these people, every single one of them considers themselves to be superior and look down on everyone. They're humiliating you like an ant, trampling on you like you are dirt. Why is that? Because they think their status is higher than yours, their background deeper than yours, and their cultivation more formidable than yours, and that's why they're so unbridled and brazen. Ling Bai stood on Chen Shi's shoulder and spoke word by word. Chen Shi, you've always been too kind, never offending anyone unless they offend you, and only when you've been bullied do you rise up in resistance. Are you able to protect yourself like this? Are you able to protect your family and friends? What you should do now is kill. Kill until they're afraid. Kill until they feel despair at the mention of your name. Kill until all of them have to pay the price 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Kill them to the point their family, friends, and masters have to suffer the flames of your rage. Don't hesitate to cause mountains of corpses and seas of blood. You must make everyone in the world remember the consequences of offending you. Chen Shi is bound to be a consequence of their entire sect being exterminated and obliteration of both sect and family. This little fellow's killing intent is so strong. When the surrounding people heard this, all of them were shocked in their hearts, and then they revealed a trace of happiness. If a treasure that was so intelligent and possessed such wisdom wasn't an immortal artifact spirit, then what was it? Little fellow, stopping killing with killing isn't the way of the Grand Tao. Suddenly, a hoarse and bleak voice sounded out from Chen Shi's mouth. The voice carried a trace of a unique grief, and it caused Ling Bai to be unable to refrain from being stunned. At this moment, Chen Shi held his hands behind his back, his bearing awe-inspiring, and his deep eyes seemed to cover the boundless universe, covering the changes in the stars, the lunar and solar tide, the movement in mountains and rivers, and all the changes in the world. Just his pair of eyes actually showed the rise and fall of the world and the circle of life and death. Why does this fellow seem as if he has become a different person? Everyone noticed the enormous change in Chen Shi's bearing, and they couldn't help but be apprehensive in their hearts. Death is knocking at your door, yet you're still playing tricks? Die! Grand hidden tiger fist. Behind Man Hong, a young man with bronze-colored skin shouted out explosively before taking a stride forward, and the muscles on his body bulged up one by one as dark lights twined around his body before converging onto his right arm. Then he punched out. Bang! A storm gathered as the airflow emitted explosive bangs. A simple punch instead seemed as if it could break open a hill and stir the sea, and the terrifying energy condensed into a myriad of tiger head-shaped fist prints that brandished their claws and bared their fangs as they tore through the sky and clawed at Chen Shi. This strike was straightforward and concise, and it was a sudden attack that was extremely ferocious. Not bad. Manja's grand hidden tiger fist contained the Tao of illusions, the Tao of shadow souls, the might of a tiger's soul, and these three things are combined, causing it to already attain the state of perfection. When he participates in the All-Star meeting 5 years from now, perhaps there'll be a position for him. Nearby, Man Hong seemed to have expected long ago that Man Zhen would make a move, and he secretly judged endlessly in his heart. The Grand Hidden Dragon Fist was a Tao-grade martial technique passed down in the Sky Cave Mountain. It contained the Taos of illusions and shadow souls that were combined with the energy of a tiger's soul, and when it's cultivated to the limit, a single punch struck out would possess the might of a myriad of tiger roars shaking the 9 heavens. Manja's punch was already deeply skilled in the essence of the Grand Hidden Tiger Fist, and it was extremely formidable. A tiny grain dares to emit light? Chen Shi grunted coldly as his right hand swung out, and a wisp of a brilliance that alternated between black and white soared up to form a revolving wheel. It was like the rising of the sun and setting of the moon, containing boundless variations within, and it seemed to be between life and death as it cycled endlessly. Bang! Manja's fist prints were like paper and were easily crushed by the black and white wheel, whereas his body was instead covered by the black and white wheel from above, and he actually didn't have the slightest room to avoid it. No matter how he dodged, he was unable to escape being locked down by the white and black wheel, and he actually even forgot to struggle. After that, everyone saw a shocking scene. Manja's robust and strong body's vitality leaked away swiftly. In an instant, he'd become a gray-haired and hunched old man with a face covered in wrinkles, blurred vision, falling teeth, and his entire backbone had collapsed into the shape of a bow. In an instant, a heroic and exuberant young man had become an old man with only a short time left. His lifespan was gone and his vitality was dried up. What power is this? The pupils of everyone constricted abruptly as great astonishment and horror gushed out in their hearts. So long as a cultivator attained the golden core realm, a lifespan of a few thousand years could be acquired. So long as one didn't stop cultivating and advance step by step, it was even possible to retain one's youth forever. The fundamental reason a cultivator sought the Tao was for the sake of having a lifespan similar to the heavens and the earth, to cast off the restraint of life, death, age and sickness, to leap out for the 5 elements and escape the cycle of death. It could be said that lifespan was the life of a cultivator, the foundation of a cultivator's survival, and without one's lifespan, everything was just nonsense. However, at this moment, there was a power that was able to turn around one's lifespan, able to take away the foundation of one's life, so how could it not cause others to feel terror in their hearts? Crack! A clear sound resounded out. Manja's lifespan had withered, causing the skin, bones, and meridians in his entire body to seem as if they were unable to withstand the erosion of time, and they collapsed inch by inch before transforming into ash. Just like this, in the blink of an eye, a cultivator at the Golden Core realm who was one of the top figures in the younger generation had vanished forever in the heavens and the earth. As they watched helplessly as this scene occurred, everyone felt their entire body go cold as if they'd fallen into an icy pit. Samsara. This is the Samsara Grand Tao. No, it's the laws of Samsara. Could it be that you're a heavenly immortal? No. Even an ordinary heavenly immortal is utterly unable to control the laws of samsara. Who actually are you? Xianxia spoke with surprise and bewilderment. This young woman that had always been tranquil, indifferent, and misty like smoke seemed to have recalled something, and her heart was filled with surging waves at this moment. He's just a little fellow at the Golden Hall realm. That attack from before might just be his trump card. Let's join forces. I don't believe we're unable to kill him. Huangfu Chongming grunted coldly. Exactly. I clearly remember that this fellow is indeed only at the Golden Hall realm. At this moment, perhaps he's drawing support from the strength of the magic treasure in his hand to utilize such a formidable attack, but it's obviously impossible to be maintained for long. Let's attack together and we'll surely be able to annihilate him. Lin Moshuan's eyes flickered indefinitely, and he seemed to have seen through Xianxia's secrets as he spoke coldly. Brother Lin is right. This kid is indeed at the Golden Hall realm, and only the strength of an immortal artifact is capable of allowing him to exert such a terrifying strength. Right? Xiao Linger nodded as well. The others secretly heaved a sigh of relief when they heard this. If it was said that Xianxia's identity was a heavenly immortal, then their actions of wanting to take a share of the treasures in his possession was no different than courting death. But obviously, this fellow wasn't a heavenly immortal, and he wasn't even at the Golden Core realm. So the power that annihilated Manja earlier was easy to explain. It was surely the might of the immortal artifact in his possession. When they thought up to here, the greed in the hearts of everyone was like weeds that grew madly, not decreasing but increasing instead. That was the might of samsara. If I'm able to possess this immortal artifact, then wouldn't I be able to cultivate the samsara Tao insight and escape the restraints of the 6 paths of reincarnation? So that's how it is. Xianxia seemed to have understood the reason behind it, and her expression once again recovered its calm, and she said indifferently, "Everyone, Let's join forces and kill him first. Otherwise, he'll crush us one by one and none of us will be able to escape." As she spoke, Xianxia's white hand flipped to cause an ancient copper mirror that was coiled with smoke and mist to appear in her hand. The surface of the mirror was inscribed with dense and mysterious patterns of flowers, birds, insects, fish, mountains, and rivers. All of these patterns converged together and effused an obscure and chaotic aura that caused the surrounding space to ripple into a seemingly real yet elusive indistinct scene. Misty treasured mirror. Everyone was instantly shocked in their hearts when they saw this treasure. This misty treasured mirror was a far-famed treasure of the White Crane sect. Supposedly, this treasured mirror was in existence at the ranks of immortal artifacts, but a few thousand years ago, this treasured mirror had suffered an exceedingly heavy injury due to an unknown reason, causing its quality to fall down from the ranks of immortal artifacts. But even then, the might of this magic treasure was already exceedingly formidable, and it won infinite prestige for the White Crane sect. At this moment, the misty treasure mirror appearing in Xianxia's possession caused everyone to instantly understand that this young woman was about to attack with her full strength. At practically the instant that Xianxia withdrew her misty treasured mirror, another heavy and archaic sound resounded out. A cauldron-shaped magic treasure had suddenly appeared in the hands of Huangfu Chongming. It had 3 legs and 2 handles, with 9 serpents coiling around it, and the aura of treasures shot into the sky, causing it to seem as if it could rule the world. The 9-python sky ruler cauldron. It's actually one of the 6 great rare treasures of the wise king's estate. This fellow Huangfu Chongming is going to attack with his full strength as well. Looks like he's determined to obtain the immortal artifacts in that kid's possession like Xianxia. This won't do. I can't fall behind. How could everyone still dare dally when they saw this scene? They were deeply afraid that Xianxia and Huangfu Chongming would seize the chance to first pick. And every single one of them didn't hesitate in the slightest to withdraw their trump cards. For a time, over 10 magic treasures of a variety of shapes and were coiled with the aura of treasures appeared out of thin air, causing numerous strands of auspicious energy to appear in the sky, causing rays of light that shone far into the distance, and causing howls and cries that rose and fell like the tide, and their piercingly cold killing intent shot directly into the 9 heavens. The battle would break out at any moment. Misty treasured mirror. 9 pythons sky ruler cauldron. Numerous magic treasures appeared out of thin air, instantly causing the heaven and earth to lose color as space wailed. Every single inch of space was filled with a variety of energy that expanded and exploded, and they emitted sharp explosions that caused one's scalp to go numb. No matter if it was Xianxia, Huangfu Chongming, Lu Fengqi, Manhong, or the others behind them, all 4 of these groups were formed from experts of the younger generation that had come from all over the Darchu dynasty, and all of them possessed a cultivation at the Golden Core realm, outstanding natural talent, and formidable strengths. All the magic treasures within their possessions were precious treasures passed down to them from the sects standing behind them. They possessed extraordinary might, and were absolutely not something that could be compared to by those ordinary treasures that could be bought on the market. At this moment, when these magic treasures were utilized while combining with their entire strengths, the impetus wasn't inferior to a volcano erupting, a landslide, or a tidal wave, and it seemed as if it wanted to tear a hole in the sky. As expected, so long as evil intentions do not die down, so does slaughter. Fine. I'll send all of you off, and you can repent on the road to hell. When Qianxi, who was surrounded in the center, saw this scene, the hoarse and bleak voice once again sounded out from the corners of his mouth. But this time, besides containing grief, the voice also revealed a strand of resolute killing intent. The flower blooms and wilts in a cycle of 1,000 years, yet leaves and flower never meet. As one brings the end of the other, just like a pair of star-crossed lovers, and it guides souls across to the netherworld at the other side. The path illuminated by fire leads to Paramitha. Along with this grievous and aged voice sounding out, Qianxi moved abruptly. He pointed towards the sky with his feet firmly on the ground, yet his figure seemed as if it was moving about in all directions within the depths of space. With a point of his finger, A sea of flowers that were scarlet red like blood gushed out abruptly to cover the heaven and earth, and when looked at from afar, it was like a carpet covered in fresh blood lay across space and led towards hell, where crime was annihilated. Paramitha Dao territory, the path illuminated by fire. The horrifying crimson-red flowers were the well-renowned red spider lilies of the netherworld that was also called the Paramitha flowers. They were like fire and blood and were reputed to be the flowers that led souls. They represented disaster, separation, and death. Legend says that once one died, their soul would be guided by the Paramitha flower to head towards the netherworld. Shit! It's actually the Paramitha Dao territory within the netherworld's samsara. Everyone, use your entire strength to kill him. Otherwise, all of us will have our souls extracted by him and suppressed within the netherworld, and will be unable to escape for eternity. When she saw the numerous crimson-red flowers that covered the heavens and the earth, Xianxia's pupils constricted abruptly as she let out a clear shout. Her sleeves fluttered as her white hands flipped, causing the misty treasured mirror to explode out with a ball of a seven-colored mist that was like a dragon as it fluttered freely in the sky before tearing through the sky to strike Xianxia. There was no need for Xianxia's reminder as everyone else had noticed that something was off, and they attacked with their entire strengths right away. Bang! The 9-python sky ruler cauldron flew up into the sky. Its image was like a mountain that held up the sky as countless profound runes swirled out from the cauldron. Every single rune transformed into a mountain that was either lofty and powerful or precipitous and solitary, and it converged into a powerful scene of a myriad of mountains that fiercely crushed down towards Xianxia that was beneath it. At practically the exact same time, a saber that seemed capable of swallowing everything appeared out of thin air. The body of the saber seemed to carry boundless seawater, with waves slapping onto each other, causing the azure seawater to dash into the skies, and numerous 300 long dragon sharks that were the overlords of the sea roared within it, causing its ferocious energy to cover the heavens and the earth. Besides the saber, a fist tore through the sky and smashed out. The fist carried many overlapping images as it flew out, like a group of mountains overlapping over one another, and it formed into a sledgehammer that seemed to intend to smash open the starry sky and shatter the myriad of dimensions, causing one to be unable to distinguish the real fist from the fake images. Lin Moshuan's earthly heaven sword, Xiao Linger's spirit flame sword. At this instant various terrifying attacks poured out like tidewater, and the might of these attacks was something that even a rebirth realm cultivator would have to flee from. Rumble. It was like the heavens were collapsing, the earth splitting apart, and the sun and moon falling. The sea of flowers that were like blood that covered the heavens and the earth were smashed to the point of becoming riddled with holes and was torn into pieces. Especially the 7-colored mist that Xianxia executed. It possessed a matchless swallowing energy that went on a rampage within the sea of flowers, and it threw space itself into disorder as it swept through all obstacles. However, to everyone's disbelief, these attacks were unable to come the slightest bit close to Xianxia. He walked freely within space as if he'd stepped out of the 6 paths of reincarnation and wasn't part of the 5 elements. His expression was neither sad nor happy, like a supreme god that watched the passage of time with a smile and stood above all life in the world. How could this be possible? Huangfu Chongming roared out in shock. Even a rebirth realm cultivator can only flee for his life when facing our full force attacks. Yet how could we possibly not even be capable of touching this fellow's sleeves? Lu Fengqi's gaze was anxious and doubtful. How can a Golden Hall realm ant like him be so formidable? Even if he's drawing strength from that immortal artifact, it's impossible for him to easily avoid our full force strikes, right? Man Hong's expression flickered indeterminately. Paramitha Dao territory. When he's at the other side, how can we possibly hit him? Only Xianxia seemed to have seen through the reason behind everything, and she frowned as she said coldly, "Everyone, let's first break this Paramitha Dao territory first. Once he doesn't have it to rely on, this person will naturally be dead for sure. Miss Qing is right. Kill! Kill!" Instantly, everyone stopped thinking so much, and they attacked the Paramitha flowers that covered the heavens and the earth in their surroundings with all their might. Without a guide, the seas of misery will have no end. and even the gods are unable to struggle free as they're pulled down into oblivion. Right at this moment, Xianxia's finger pressed onto the space before him once more. Rumble. A muddy and dim ocean lay across the heavens and the earth. The muddy waves surged across its boundless surface, and an unparalleled swallowing force gushed out from the ocean with a bang. The roaring waves atop the ocean seemed like countless gods roaring, "Sink! Sink!" And they seemed as if they wanted this entire heaven and heart to sink into this boundless ocean. Oblivion Dao Insight. The boundless sea of misery. OM. 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 All the magic treasures that fluttered in the entire sky seemed as if they were grabbed by a shapeless hand, and they struggled intensely and uneasily as they started wailing. Yet they were gradually dragged towards the extremely muddy sea of misery. Oblivion Dao territory. Xianxia couldn't maintain her composure any longer, and she let out a sharp cry. Watch out, everyone. The Oblivion Dao territory suppresses everything and wipes out the intelligence of all life. If our magic treasures fall into it, our soul brands will be removed from them before being seized away by him. Damn it! How can there be such a terrifying Dao territory? Return! Get the fuck back! The expression of everyone turned grim as they roared loudly with the intention of taking back their magic treasures. These magic treasures were their trump cards that were exceedingly precious and extremely rare. Once they lost it, their combat strength would be reduced greatly, and if it wasn't for the sake of seizing the immortal artifact in Xianxia's possession, they wouldn't have used them at all. So when they heard that this Oblivion Dao territory was actually capable of seizing away all their magic treasures, these people exerted their entire strengths without daring to be hesitant in the slightest. Want to take them back? It's too late. Dusk is immeasurable as it brings an end to everything and causes all life to fall. Terminus Dao territory. The dusk of all gods. Along with the bleak and hoarse voice, Xianxia rode the wind and tore through the waves on the sea of misery as he took a step forward and arrived before the 10+ magic treasures, and then his finger pointed out. A wisp of a dense color of dusk was condensed on his finger. It was like the end of time, the final stage of the universe, revealing a boundless aura that was tragic, helpless, and powerlessness to turn everything around. Dusk was the end terminus. After dusk was eternal silence for the sake of daybreak that came in the next moment and ushered in a new era. OM. The terminus Dao territory was condensed at the tip of his finger. With a point of his finger, dusk gushed into appearance and swept through the heavens and the earth, and the 10+ magic treasures were lightly brushed by the light of dusk, causing them to instantly be like kites that had their strings cut, losing the connection they had with their owners before pouring down into the sea of misery. Besides Xianxia, who's noticed something was off since long ago and had withdrawn her misty treasured mirror, Huangfu Chongming's 9 Python Sky Ruler Cauldron, Lu Fengqi's Myriad Water Dragon Shark Saber, Lin Mashuan's Earthly Heaven Sword, Xiao Linger's Spirit Flame Sword, Xue Chen's 9 Spirit Myriad Crane Drawing. Practically everyone's treasures weren't able to escape, and their brands on the magic treasures were removed, completely becoming unowned things. Pooh! After losing their connection with their magic treasures, Huangfu Chongming and the others trembled as they abruptly spat out a mouthful of blood, and their minds had suffered a heavy injury. Give my magic treasure back, bastard! If you don't hand over my earthly heaven sword, no one in the entire world is able to save you. How could this have happened? The 9 Spirit Myriad Crane Drawing possesses a strand of my soul assuming command within. How could it possibly be easily removed? Sharp cries that were mixed with rage and terror resounded out. But when faced with Xianxia that stood proudly above the sea of misery, they didn't dare take another step forward. At this moment, they'd already realized that this kid at the Golden Hall realm was absolutely not as simple as he seemed on the surface. The various Dao territories he utilized simply possessed the might to transform the mundane into divine, and they were Dao territories that they've never heard of nor seen before. After all, every single Dao territory was condensed from a grand Dao that cultivators experienced countless tempering and bitter comprehension before attaining. The process was extremely arduous, and its difficulty wasn't inferior to ascending a mountain with one's bare hands and filling up a sea with pebbles. It was even to the extent that most cultivators were unable to master the true essence of a Dao territory in their entire lifetimes. Amongst 1,000 cultivators, it could already be considered a great fortune if one of them was capable of comprehending a Dao territory. However, Xianxia was actually able to instantly execute the Paramitha, Oblivion, and Terminus Dao territory that were 3 types of supreme Dao territories. Terrifying abilities like this and Xianxia's skill in utilizing his Dao territory had already exceeded their wildest dreams. They simply didn't dare believe that such a terrifying force existed in this world. Is this fellow really at the Golden Hall realm? At this moment, as they gazed at the tall and solitary that stood atop the muddy sea of misery, everyone couldn't suppress the wisp of powerlessness that emerged within their heart, and it was as if they were facing an unshakable mountain. They didn't have extravagant hopes of being able to seize the immortal artifacts in Xianxia's possession any longer. Contrarily, they only hoped that they were able to retake the magic treasures that belonged to themselves, and only that. "You aren't Xianxia." Xianxia spoke out suddenly, and her deep and cold voice broke the silence. Xianxia didn't deny it. "Moreover, I've already discerned that the attack earlier has already consumed all your strength. Otherwise, you absolutely wouldn't wait until now yet not make a move." Xianxia seemed extremely calm as she spoke word by word. Xianxia raised his head to glance at Xianxia with surprise, and then he said with sudden understanding, "So it's a reincarnated heavenly immortal. No wonder. Then let me ask you, since you know my strength exhausted, why aren't you attacking? If I'm not wrong, you still have a trace of strength remaining, and it's probably prepared for the sake of escaping." Xianxia spoke without thinking. "Oh, then let me ask you another thing. Have you guessed who I am?" Xianxia asked with interest. "You're absolutely not an immortal artifact spirit, and through my observation of the 3 Dao territories you utilized earlier, I think you should be the will of a great figure in the netherworld." "No, it should be a strand of will." Xianxia pondered for a moment as she spoke with a heavy expression, and her clear gaze seemed to reveal the sheen of wisdom. A strand of will? The conversation the two wasn't concealed, so it entered completely into the ears of everyone present. When they heard that Xianxia's body contained a strand of the will of a great figure, besides coming to a sudden understanding, violent waves of shock arose within their hearts. Only a heavenly immortal realm expert that had experienced and survived 9 waves of heavenly tribulation to ascend would be able to use will brands to spread out their will into the various dimensions. They were like clones that wandered about in the boundless universe and fully observed the profundity of the workings of the heavens. Every single will brand contained the heavenly immortal realm expert's thoughts, intelligence, strengths, and mastery of the laws of the heaven Dao. A cultivator that hadn't experienced the heavenly tribulations were not a match for it at all. Even if it was a figure at the earthly immortal realm, unless the earthly immortal realm cultivator had no other choice, the cultivator would absolutely not dare offend the will of a heavenly immortal. Because no one could guarantee that when they annihilated a heavenly immortal's will brand, its owner wouldn't tear through the boundless space and instantly appear before them. That would absolutely be a calamity. It was precisely because of this that when they found out that Xianxia's body actually possessed a strand of a great figure's will, the astonishment in the hearts of everyone present was obvious. A little girl, yet so intelligent. If you don't come to a premature end, then you'll surely become extraordinary in the future. Ha ha ha. I'll spare all of you this time, bye. Xianxia laughed endlessly, his voice bleak and heroic, and it revealed a unique sadness from within. Swish! With a flick of his sleeve, the blood-red Paramitha flowers that covered the sky, the boundless and muddy sea of misery, and the 10+ magic treasures he'd taken from the others had vanished into thin air, and then his right hand lightly scratched past the sky and a pitch-black and deep crack was split open. In the next moment, he'd already raised his leg to stride into the crack before vanishing in the heaven and the earth in the blink of an eye. Everyone was dumbstruck as a wisp of bitterness that was dense to the point of being inextricable, and a deep feeling of defeat gushed out from their hearts. Who were they? Prominent figures from the various top sects of the Darchu dynasty, the outstanding figures amongst the Golden Core realm experts of the younger generation, the formidable figures that had hope of becoming eminent and possessing a position to head to the primeval battlefield during the All-Star meeting 5 years from now. In their sex, they were the outstanding young prospects in the eyes of all their seniors. Amongst all their peers in their sex, they were the dazzling stars of tomorrow. In the eyes of the countless mortals, they were proud children of the heavens. Relying on their deep background, formidable strength, and respected status, their path of cultivation up until now was one where they got anything they wanted, an ever-successful path. However, this time, they'd suffered a terrible setback before a kid at the Golden Hall realm and suffered a double loss. Not only did they not obtain the immortal artifacts, they'd lost the magic treasures that were their trump cards instead, and the humiliation, grievance, rage, and unwillingness in their hearts was obvious. Amongst the people present, perhaps only Tan Tai Hong's feelings were the most complicated. He knew that after this incident, when he met Xianxia again in the future, they would probably be enemies, and it would be difficult to maintain the relationship they had before. When Tan Tai Hong thought how he'd unwittingly split all relationships with a young man that possessed a miraculous body refinement technique, 3 immortal artifacts, boundless potential, and had a strand of a great figure's will backing him, Tan Tai Hong's intestines almost turned green with regret. Alas, I can only hope that I can retrieve a portion of our previous relationship by relying on Zixuan. Even though he thought like this, Tan Tai Hong's heart was still in extreme chaos, and it was something that couldn't be solved in a short period, causing his expression to become gloomy and distressed as well. Damn it! Truly too detestable. Lin Moxuan, Xiao Linger, Huangfu Chongming, what did the 3 of you say earlier? He's only a nobody at the Golden Hall realm? Yet why does he possess so many trump cards? All of you caused me to lose a precious treasure, so all of you must give me an explanation. The Eastern Sea's dragon shark Isle disciple, Lu Fengqi, spoke with a hostile expression. Exactly, all of you must give us an explanation. Because of this matter, my junior brother Man Zhe lost his life. If it wasn't for us being deceived by all of you, would we make a move against that kid? Man Hong spoke fiercely as well. These two had a bellyful of rage yet nowhere to vent it as well. So both of them pointed their anger at Huangfu Chongming and the others. When the others saw this, all of them turned to look at Huangfu Chongming with ominous expressions and gazes that almost sprayed fire. Humph! What? All of you weren't able to seize the immortal artifact, so you come behave atrociously before me. Huangfu Chongming had a bellyful of rage as well. So when he saw everyone targeting him, then flames of rage in his heart burned brighter, and he sneered loudly. Want me to give all of you an explanation? Do you think you're worthy? You? Man Hong glared angrily. Want to fight? Huangfu Chongming spoke gloomily. But you, Man Hong, have to properly consider the Sky Cave Mountain behind you. Offending us is equivalent to offending the Wise King's estate, the Earthly Heaven sect, and the 9 Cauldrons Immortal sect. So long as you're able to bear these consequences, then I, Huangfu Chongming, will accompany you until the end today. When they heard this, Lin Moxuan and Xiao Linger walked over to stand by Huangfu Chongming's side as they sneered endlessly. Their meaning was exceedingly obvious. It was that they wanted to move together with Huangfu Chongming and group up together. Humph! What say you, Miss Qing? Lu Fengqi grunted coldly as his eyeballs spun to look towards Qing Shui that had been standing there silently all along. As far as he was concerned, if he was able to pull over Qing Shui into his group, then he would be completely unafraid of Huangfu Chongming's group. Yeah, I want to hear your opinion as well, Miss Qing. Man Hong appeared to be boorish and stalwart, yet he wasn't stupid. Conversely, he was extremely skilled in observing the speech and behavior of others. As soon as Lu Fengqi spoke out, he instantly understood the meaning within Lu Fengqi's words, and he spoke out successively. When the two of them spoke like this, it instantly caused the attention of everyone to descend onto Qing Shui, and even Huangfu Chongming's group of 3 couldn't help but frown. Obviously, in the heart of the 3, Qing Shui's decision would similarly play a critical role. After all, this woman's strength was there for all to see, and she was also a reincarnated heavenly immortal. Once she decided to interfere in this matter and help Lu Fengqi's and the others, then Huangfu Chongming's group would have no choice but to consider their approach once more. If I'm not wrong, Huangfu Chongming, Lu Fengqi, Man Hong, all there of your groups ought to be here for the sake of Chen Yuan's treasure vault. Qing Shui swept her gaze past everyone in the surroundings, and she suddenly spoke of Qian Yuan's treasure vault. As expected, when these three groups heard Qing Shui's words, all their expressions became slightly uncomfortable, and their gazes flickered. All of you don't have to deny it, because my White Crane sect has come for the sake of Qian Yuan's treasure vault as well. I suggest that all our four groups work together and search Qian Yuan's treasure vault together. How about it? Qing Shui's expression was tranquil and indifferent as she spoke. Why should we work together? Wouldn't it be better to search through it ourselves? Huangfu Chongming frowned. I know what you're thinking. It's none other than you possess an incomplete map of Qian Yuan's treasure vault, right? I'll be candid with you, my White Crane sect possesses one as well. I believe that everyone from the Eastern Sea's Dragonshark Isle and the Northern Barbaric Lands' Skycave Mountain surely possesses an incomplete map like this as well. Qing Shui's clear eyes spun as she glanced at Tantai Hong and spoke indifferently. An incomplete map isn't a complete map in the end. If our four groups join forces, our chances of entering Qian Yuan's treasure vault would be even greater. And when we encounter danger, we can jointly share some of it. What do all of you think? Then how will we distribute the treasures after entering Qian Yuan's treasure vault? Huangfu Chongming spoke with an irresolute expression. We'll each rely on our own ability, said Qing Shui. All right, I agree. Huangfu Chongming, Lu Fengqi, Man Hong, and the others pondered briefly before agreeing to Qing Shui's suggestion. Pei Zhong, Xuechun, I'll give the incomplete map to the two of you. Both of you set out with the other fellow Taoists first. I'll first go deal with some things, and I'll surely return in time before all of you find Qian Yuan's treasure vault. Qing Shui swung her white hand and a jade slip fell into Pei Zhong's hand, whereas she instead turned around and left without the slightest hesitation. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, she'd vanished in the boundless ocean of sand. This woman is acting so mysteriously. What's she going off to do now? Everyone raised their eyes to look at the direction Qing Shui vanished towards, and a trace of wonder arose within their hearts. The depths of the oceanic desert was an undiscovered world that was mysterious, dangerous, and boundlessly vast. No one knew exactly how large it was or how deep it was. Oases existed in every desert, but the oasis before him was like an ancient and luxuriant forest with fertile black soil and large trees that shot into the sky. Vines that were thick as barrels climbed and coiled around the treetop like numerous pythons that hung on the tree. Unlike ordinary forests, the plants here mostly appeared grayish-brown and umbrella-shaped, and they seemed like fully bloomed large mushrooms. There were only a few leaves scattered about on these trees, and they emitted a gentle glow. The air in this place was damp and hot, and the entire oasis was covered in a dense miasma and poisonous fog of a variety of colors that seemed like mist, and life-threatening danger was revealed within their beauty. If one was to dig apart the black-colored soil on the ground and shatter the layer of rocks beneath that were 60 centimeters thick, one would notice extremely abundant amounts of or deposits like ink crystal, violet silverstone, scorching sunsteel, green-tide crystal, rainbow fine gold, and many other treasures of the heavens and the earth that were rare in the outside world. All of these were superb materials for refining flying swords and magic treasures, and they were even capable of assisting in one's cultivation. But this oasis seemed as if it was separated from the world, and there were rarely any human footprints that appeared within it. Moreover, within this forest that grew with strange plants were a variety of poisonous beasts and demon beasts wandering about, and it was filled with poisonous fog and miasma. So long as a person entered, the person would surely die without even leaving a corpse or bones behind. Thump! However, someone broke the tranquility of this forest today, as a black figure had descended from the skies and directly fell onto the damp, warm, and soft black soil and caused a pile of dirt to fly out in all directions. This person looked to be in an extremely sorry state as he lay there without moving in the slightest. He had a handsome face that possessed a firm and persistent outline. But at this moment, his countenance was white as a sheet and his eyes were closed tightly. Swoosh! A 10 centimeters tall white-clothed little person flew out and looked around in the surroundings, and he only shot his gaze towards the young man on the ground after noticing that there was no danger in the surroundings. With a slight check, he noticed that the young man wasn't in danger and only had a slightly chaotic aura, causing him to heave a sigh of relief in his heart. The side effects of having your body controlled by the will of a great figure is extremely great. It's said that cultivators with comparatively weaker bodies would even possibly have their souls heavily injured and Tao foundation damaged. Fortunately, Xianxia's body refinement cultivation is exceedingly formidable. Perhaps he'll be able to awaken after a period of time. Ling Bai thought for a moment before sitting cross-legged before Xianxia, and his gaze swept the surroundings vigilantly as he started to stay on guard for Xianxia. Xianxia's condition was terrible indeed. For a moment, his entire body was bone-piercingly cold, as if he'd fallen into a pit of ice. Then a moment later, it would be as if he was within a furnace, causing his consciousness to become fragmented and chaotic. He felt himself wandering through a sea of flowers that were crimson red like blood, and the surrounding world was completely crimson red as well. Numerous permetha flowers that revealed disaster, separation, and beauty seemed to be chanting in unison and attracting his soul. The flower blooms and wilts in a cycle of 1,000 years, yet leaves and flower never meet, as one brings the end of the other, just like a pair of star-crossed lovers, and it guides souls across to the netherworld at the other side. This is the path illuminated by fire, and it attracts and puts the souls of all beings in the heavens and the earth to rest. The netherworld maintains the 6 paths of resurrection. A trace of enlightenment arose in Xianxia's heart. He instantly felt a vast thought surge into his sea of consciousness, and countless knowledge about the Permitha Tao insight became rooted within his heart. After an unknown period of time, Xianxia started moving about in the sea of Permitha flowers that seemed like burning flames, and everywhere he passed, the myriad of flowers would sway as if they were subjects sincerely paying their respects towards the Supreme Emperor in their hearts. Rumble. Muddy waves slapped onto the sky as a vast and boundless muddy ocean emerged before his eyes, and the seawater surged and contained an incomparable might of suppression. The sea of misery is boundless. If one has sinned, then there would be no shore when one turned back. It drags both people who have committed evil and evil spirits into oblivion. No matter if one is a god or Buddha, if you've committed evil, then you ought to be buried within the sea of misery to wash away your sins and maintain the supreme order of the 6 paths of reincarnation. This is the Oblivion Tao insight, the boundless sea of misery. Xianxia stood above the sea of misery, his clothes and long hair fluttering with the wind, and his eyes blinked as if he was already the master of the order of the 6 paths of reincarnation as he rode through the waves and moved about in all directions. The scene before his eyes changed once more. It was a scene of dusk. The gods were fighting. The devils were at war. Blood tainted the world as their might shook the universe. Yet none of them were able to escape the arrival of dusk. All of them were like the setting sun, powerless to return to the heavens, and could only perish with hatred in their hearts as darkness descended. Dusk? Terminus? Xianxia was about to carefully ruminate and comprehend the Tao within this scene when a bleak and sad voice sounded out explosively within his ears. This Tao defies the heavens and is not tolerated by the gods in the heavens and the earth. Thus suffers the vilification of the myriad of worlds in the heavens. Little fellow, with your current strength, it's better for you to temporarily refrain from comprehending it. Be sure to remember, be sure to remember. After slumbering for countless years, it's gratifying to be able to see the inheritor of an old friend. After this matter, I can vanish in the heavens and the earth, ha ha ha. The bleak and sad laughter seemed to contain boundless rage and sorrow towards the numerous worlds in the heavens, but at the last moment, the voice seemed to have become free from such feeling, and it was indifferent like water as it returned to an eternity of peacefulness and went silent forever. Xianxia was shocked, and when he opened his eyes once more, he noticed that he lay in a forest. The damp and warm air that revealed the clear fragrance of plant gushed into his nose, causing his extremely chaotic mind to obtain a trace of clarity. But before he could make any reaction, he felt intense pain surge through his entire body like tidewater. Pain. His entire body felt as if it was fiercely sliced by blades. It was painful to the point that death seemed like a release. The meridians and apertures in his entire body seemed as if they were being eaten by a myriad of tiny worms, and they caused Xianxia to feel painful torture, as if he was being sliced by thousands of blades. He understood what was going on. At the same time that the will of the aged voice controlled his body, the vast energy the aged voice carried with it brought unendurable damage to his body, and the side effects were breaking out now. She made great efforts to maintain the trace of clarity in his mind. He noticed that the true essence within his violet palace was completely dried up. The meridians in his entire body were damaged to the point they were soft like cotton, and the shaman energy within his flesh and bones seemed as if they'd been squeezed out, causing his flesh and bones to be dim, dull, and shriveled. It seemed as if the vitality of his entire body had encountered an extremely heavy injury. Even Xianxia himself felt endlessly terrified when he saw this scene. How long will it take for my body to be repaired and recover to my prime? Xianxia bit his teeth tightly as he made great efforts to resist the pain that ceaselessly gushed throughout his body and wanted to stand up. Yet he noticed that he wasn't even capable of raising a single finger. Xianxia, you've awoken? Meanwhile, Ling Bai had noticed Xianxia waking up, and he cried out with pleasant surprise. Yes, where are we? A hoarse voice that was like a blade sawing a piece of wood sounded out from Xianxia's mouth, and his voice was so displeasing that even he himself was shocked. I don't know, it should be an oasis in the oceanic desert. Ling Bai swept the surroundings with his gaze and shook his head. Don't care about these things first. How are your injuries? How long will it take for you to recover? It ought to require an extremely long time. Xianxia carefully sensed the level of damage in his entire body, and he said with a frown, I'll be unable to fight for at least another 10 to 15 days, and it's even to the extent I'll be even inferior to an ordinary person. Ling Bai was shocked and was just about to speak when a wispy and indifferent voice slowly sounded out from the sky above the forest. As expected, you don't possess the soul brand of that great figure anymore now, and you've become a cripple. Accompanying this wispy and chilly voice was Xianxia appeared on the branches of a large tree with a graceful posture and sleeves that fluttered in the wind. She was like a celestial maiden that was floating with an elegant and beautiful bearing. Xianxia's heart jerked when he saw that this woman had actually chased him all the way here, and cried out in his heart, Shit, my body is currently heavily injured and I don't even have the strength to raise a finger. When faced with this terrifying woman that's a reincarnated heavenly immortal, I utterly have no room to resist and can only wait for death to come. Swish! With a flip of Xianxia's white hand, the surrounding forest suddenly vanished without a trace, and then mist suffused the air as smoke curled up from the ground. The atmosphere was filled with moisture as numerous fresh flowers silently bloomed and multiple rattling streams flowed. The sunlight that descended was refracted to become misty and hazy, and it caused a rainbow-colored and dreamlike ripple in the surroundings. After she finished doing all this, Xianxia spoke indifferently. This is my misty rain Dao territory. With your current strength, you don't have the slightest chance of escaping. Xianxia raised his eyes to look around his surroundings, and as he gazed at the misty rain Dao insight that seemed real yet illusory, and was almost like a small world, his heart instantly sank to rock bottom, as Xianxia's words weren't exaggerated. The misty rain Dao territory before him was even more complete than Han Guo's slaughter Dao territory and Tung Huashu's blood river Dao territory. Numerous Dao insights were contained all over within the space in the Dao territory. Those fresh flowers, flowing streams, misty rain, all of them carried the aura of the grand Dao that was natural and without the slightest trace of it being artificial. All of this proved that Xianxia's comprehension in Dao territory had already attained an extremely high level that was extraordinary. What do you think of my misty rain Dao territory? Even though it can't compare to any one of the Paramitha, Oblivion, and Terminus Dao territories, it's still more than enough to trap you. Xianxia stood by the side of a stream. Her appearance was extraordinary, like a lotus flower in clear water, and her entire body seemed misty, increasing her mysteriousness. When one looked at this woman, she wasn't like a cultivator that had cultivated from the mortal world. Her entire body seemed pure and flawless, as being reincarnated caused her to be untainted by the mortal world, and she gave others the feeling as if she was immortal and not a human. This was precisely a reincarnated heavenly immortal. Since the day of birth, A reincarnated heavenly immortal would have developed intelligence and be extremely knowledgeable, as the reincarnated heavenly immortal possessed a trace of the Tao comprehension experience from their previous life and possessed an advantage in cultivation that the commoners in the world were unable to compare to. Your Tao territory is not bad indeed, but I don't care about this. You chased after me this time because you want to seize the things in my possession? You ought to know that more than 10 of you were unable to kill me. Xianxia lay on the ground. Even though his condition was terrible, his expression had become composed and calm. I know this, but the reason we weren't capable of stopping you was that we were stopped by the will of a great figure within you. I've more or less understood this figure's identity, and he's probably unable to save you now, because he was jointly crushed by the experts of the various worlds a few tens of thousands of years ago. Perhaps his body and spirit weren't annihilated, but at the very least, he's already powerless to go against the various gods of the 3 dimensions. So you're alone and helpless now, so you don't have to try deceiving me. Xianxia's voice was cold and misty. Her beautiful face remained without the slightest ripple. Yet her expression wasn't icy cold but was instead carefree, calm, and tranquil, and no one was able to know exactly what she was thinking in the depths of her heart. A few tens of thousands of years ago, jointly crushed by the experts of the various worlds? A strand of astonishment gushed out from within Xianxia's heart. Only at this moment did he faintly understand exactly what sort of heaven-defying existence the owner of the bleak and sad voice was. But he instead spoke calmly. If I'm not wrong, you're still extremely afraid of this great figure behind me. Otherwise, you absolutely would not talk so much nonsense and wouldn't wait until now but not make a move against me. It's indeed so. That great figure was able to make the various worlds be extremely afraid of him all those years ago, and he could be considered to possess shocking ability and could command the world. Even if I cultivate to the heavenly immortal realm once more, I have to be on guard against any preparations he made before his downfall. But you ought to understand, humans die in the pursuit of wealth just like birds die in the pursuit of food. For the sake of obtaining some things, I'll disregard everything to achieve it. Xianxia nodded and answered truthfully. It was precisely because she didn't evade in the slightest in admitting this that she had an even stronger feeling that this woman wasn't simple, and he was even unable to arouse the thought of hating her. Because compared to the hypocritical and crafty actions of the others, this woman was able to speak about what she was thinking without the slightest evasion. This showed that she possessed absolute confidence towards her own strength, and the situation had always been within her control. What do you plan to do? Xianxia resolutely decided to stop playing mind games with this woman, and he asked her in an extremely frank manner. Xianxia replied, I plan to make a trade with you. Hand over the immortal artifacts in your possession to me, whereas I'll instead give you a corresponding amount of treasures, spirit liquid, cultivation techniques, medicinal pills. You can choose anything you like. A trade. Xianxia seemed to have thought of something. This is indeed a good method to solve problems. Seizing has turned into a trade, and you're even compensating me with some wealth. So long as I agree, then no matter who it is, they'll probably not take any action against you anymore. A good plan, truly a good plan. Xianxia perceived the ridicule within Xianxia's words, yet she didn't mind in the slightest and said indifferently, What do you think about this trade? Do I have a choice? Xianxia replied rhetorically. Xianxia said, This is already the best outcome for you. I presume you're aware of the gap between the two of us. Resisting to the end will only cost you your life, and that's not something an intelligent person does. You're going too far. Xianxia, you absolutely must not agree. Ling Bai leaped up to float before Xianxia. He looked at Xianxia with an icy cold gaze as the aura on his body gushed out, causing him to seem like an unsheathed sharp sword that intended to drink the blood of its enemies. Even though I'm unable to discern what you are, I'm roughly able to determine that you're absolutely not a match for me. It's better if you don't struggle pointlessly. Xianxia shook her head, and it wasn't sarcasm or mockery, but was instead like she was stating a fact. Ling Bai, don't act rashly. Xianxia shouted out with a low voice, and his voice was filled with an indisputable tone. Ling Bai's expression was indeterminate, and he hesitated for a moment before retreating angrily in the end. Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief in his heart when he heard this, and then he stared coldly at Xianxia and asked, "What do you want from me?" "The Buddha's pagoda, the netherworld register, and him." Xianxia raised her hand to point at Ling Bai. When he heard Xianxia actually asked for him, Ling Bai was angered to the point his chest rose and fell, and if it wasn't for what Xianxia said earlier, he'd have disregarded everything and charged over to fight her since long ago. Xianxia was extremely furious in his heart as well. Although the Buddha's pagoda was damaged long ago, it was an immortal artifact after all. The Netherworld Register was an extremely mysterious precious treasure, and its value even surpassed the Buddha's pagoda, whereas Ling Bai, in his heart, Ling Bai was absolutely not a thing that could be used to trade but was instead an intimate brother of his. They trusted each other and went through difficulties together, and they'd long since formed a deep friendship. How could he hand Ling Bai over? "I can't give Ling Bai to you, but the other two can be given to you." Xianxia spoke without the slightest hesitation. "If you don't agree, then I can only fight to the end." Xianxia. A stream of warmth uncontrollably gushed out from Ling Bai's heart when he saw Xianxia was still protecting him at a time like this. And then a wisp of resolution arose on his tiny face as he spoke word by word. "Since you've spoken like this, I can't allow her to touch a hair on you today, even if I die. Letting your emotions control you are the actions of an idiot." Xianxia shook her head and said while looking at Xianxia, "After I kill you, I can get everything all the same, so you don't have the qualification to discuss terms with me. You only have to reply if you agree or don't agree." Xianxia sighed in his herd. "We're probably going to lose our lives today." When he was talking earlier, he'd always been making great efforts to recover his true essence. So long as he possessed even a strand, he would be able to activate the jade pendant in his palm and enter the abode. However, it was regretful that his body had suffered injuries that were too severe, and not to mention recovering his true essence, he didn't even have the strength to move his body in the slightest. "Xianxia, you must live on. Only by surviving will you have the chance to take revenge and wipe out all our enemies that had once bullied us. I believe that you're surely capable of achieving this." Ling Bai's voice revealed a trace of an indescribable feeling, and it was like the entrusting of a final task before one passed, causing a strand of a bad premonition to abruptly arise within Xianxia's heart. However, before Xianxia could speak out and stop him, Ling Bai had instantly transformed into a wisp of gold light that shot into the skies, and an extremely vast and sharp sword chi surging towards the surroundings. Every inch of this sword chi contained the supreme nirvana sword insight, causing the sword chi to rage to the point of tearing and slicing open numerous traces of shattering in the space within the Misty Rain Dao territory. Within this extremely vast sword insight, the extremely dazzling golden light on Ling Bai's body seemed as if it was blazing. Yes, he was like a pious devotee that was sacrificing his own life in exchange for formidable strength. Fucking stop it. Stop. Panic, rage, and pain that was indescribable gushed out from within Xianxia's heart, and his eyes almost split open and bled as he roared. How could Xianxia be unable to discern that Ling Bai wanted to utilize his own life for the sake of protecting Xianxia? However, it was precisely because he discerned this that he was unable to accept the scene before his eyes. He was unable to watch idly by as the companion he trusted and relied upon, Ling Bai, died gradually before him. Why is it like this? Xianxia was shouting in his heart, yet he just couldn't utilize a strand of his strength to stop Ling Bai, and this powerless feeling of having no control nor being able to stop Ling Bai caused him to fall into boundless pain. In the distance, Xianxia revealed a rare expression of terror. She seemed to have never imagined that Ling Bai would actually disregard his own life for the sake of saving Xianxia. This act of dying for the sake of his friendship caused her tranquil feelings to be unable to help but ripple. But she was a person with a tough and firm mind, and she instantly recovered absolute composure before waving about her white hand and causing a wisp of seven-colored mist to madly converge on her palm. Unfortunately, even if you risk your life, it's bound to not make a difference. Xianxia lightly sighed and was just about to attack when she abruptly noticed something, and her clear eyes swiftly looked towards the side. Swish! Right at this moment, the completely perfect misty Dao territory that separated everything within it from the outside world had a crack torn open on it, and the various Dao insights collapsed and shattered inch by inch as a black-clothed figure with a covered face walked in with swift and even steps as if the figure was walking on flat ground. This person actually regarded the misty rain Dao territory as nothing. As far as Xianxia was concerned, Qing Shui's misty rain Dao territory was indeed the most formidable amongst the Dao territories of all his other enemies, and every single part of it contained profound Dao insights. Moreover, it possessed a natural grace without the slightest trace of being artificial. Merely this cultivation in Dao territory was able to allow Qing Shui to stand at the peak amongst cultivators with similar cultivations. However, at this moment, this misty rain Dao territory was instead easily torn apart by a black-robed figure with a covered face, and the figure entered the Dao territory unopposed. This ability was simply astonishing. But Qing Shui's expression still remained tranquil and indifferent. She didn't seem to make any movement. Yet the misty rain Dao territory that was torn apart had recovered back to its original state, and only after doing this did she start sizing up this uninvited enemy. A loose black robe covered her body, and even her face was covered beneath her hat, causing others to be unable to see her appearance clearly. But solely from the graceful figure that was outlined by her black robe, this was surely a woman without a doubt. Who's this woman? Her energy is so peculiar, and her cultivation is probably at the golden core realm or above, Qing Shui swiftly predicted in her heart. Pooh! Right at this moment, Ling Bai, who transformed into a wisp of golden light in midair, abruptly returned to his original form before flying to arrive before Xianxia. His tiny face was already ghastly pale and translucent to the extreme, his body on the verge of collapse, and he abruptly spat out a mouthful of blood. Obviously, the arrival of the black-robed woman had caused Ling Bai to resolutely stop his actions of sacrificing his own life. But he seemed to have suffered a backlash from this, causing his spirits to become lacking in vigor and vitality, and his eyes became dim and listless. Xianxia heaved a sigh of relief in his heart when he saw this scene, and all the rage, panic, and pain in his heart transformed into heartfelt happiness. So long as Ling Bai was alive, so what if a flood surged or calamity descended in the next moment? Xianxia, so it's you. Could it be that you killed the Teng brothers? It should be like that. If it wasn't for the residual dark butterfly pollen they placed on you before their death, it would be impossible for me to follow you here. In this way, it would seem that those two things are still in your possession. The black-robed woman suddenly spoke out with surprise. Her voice was like the clear cry of an oriole, melodious and clear with lingering charm, and it had its own unique taste. Xianxia frowned when he heard this, and then spoke abruptly. You're the Blood Crescent Devil Sex Fan Yunlan? It can't be wrong, since she's related to the Teng brothers and is capable of recognizing me with a single glance. Then who else could this woman be but Hall Master Fan Yunlan, who Xiao Jun spoke of? This is a problem. Xianxia's heart felt even heavier. Originally, a single Qing Shui had already caused him to be powerless to the extreme. Now that this woman from the Blood Crescent Devil sect had arrived, the heaviness in his heart was obvious. Blood Crescent Devil sect? When she heard Xianxia point out this black-robed woman's identity, Qing Shui couldn't help but frown slightly. She practically instantly determined that this woman was an enemy and not a friend. Moreover, this woman had come for the sake of the treasures in Xianxia's possession as well. Eh? You actually recognize me? Fan Yunlan seemed to be slightly surprised, and then her gaze swept the nearby Qing Shui before speaking while lost in thought. Looks like I've come in time. Otherwise, the things in your possession would have been seized by another. You think you can take him away from me? Qing Shui didn't continue keeping silent and spoke coldly. As a disciple of the Central Plains White Crane sect, she naturally had an extremely bad impression towards members of the Blood Crescent Devil sect, and her words didn't conceal her hostility in the slightest. Since you're capable of executing the Misty Rain Dao territory, I presume you're the reincarnated heavenly immortal in the rumors, the White Crane sect's Qing Shui, right? Within my Blood Crescent Devil sect's information, you're one of the most outstanding geniuses with extraordinary natural talent in the entire Darchu dynasty, and your strength is advancing at a shocking speed with every passing moment, causing you to be extremely dazzling. Unfortunately, when my blood crescent devil sect reemerges in this world, you're one of the thorns that must be removed, and I'm afraid you won't be able to mature any longer. Fan Yunlan spoke unhurriedly. She didn't pay attention to Xianxia any longer, because in her eyes, Xianxia already didn't have the slight ability to resist her, and it was the nearby Xianxia that she had to take seriously. Want to kill me? That would depend on if you have the strength. Xianxia spoke indifferently. Her bearing that remained indifferent even when facing a rebirth realm expert caused Xianxia to have to admit that this woman's mentality was so firm and tenacious that it had already surpassed ordinary geniuses. Then I'll kill you first and prove it to you. Feng Yunlan laughed lightly. As she spoke, her black robe abruptly fluttered as her right hand stuck out like a bolt of lightning, and a blood-colored vortex gushed into appearance at the center of her palm. Storms raged, ghosts wailed, and spirits cried within it, and it seemed to contain countless evil and ruthless spirits suppressed within it. Stomp! 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 Numerous translucent rippling footprints were stomped out onto the sky as Fan Yunlan instantly arrived above Xianxia, and the blood-colored vortex covered her palm as it directly transformed into a bloody mouth that completely covered the heavens and earth as it enveloped down and actually seemed to want to swallow Xianxia completely. You can dream of touching me with any of your attacks while within my Misty Rain Dao territory. As she spoke with an indistinct voice, Xianxia's figure vanished on the spot. Humph! This blood vortex devil palm of mine is a top Dao grade martial technique, and it contains 16 devil sect Dao insights, whereas I myself am a 7th will rebirth realm cultivator. How can a tiny little golden core realm cultivator like you possibly be able to be my match? When her strike missed, Fan Yunlan's figure flashed, and she seemed to possess foresight as her feet successively stepped out in the sky. She was like a swimming dragon, a phoenix flapping its wings, and she carried translucent devilish flames in her surroundings, causing her to seem like a devil spirit that had descended into the mortal realm. She seemed to have practically shortened the distance between space as she instantly arrived before Xianxia and struck out with her palm. The speed of this palm was entirely indescribable, nor could anyone describe its overbearingness as it seemed to dominate the entire world. The devilish flames tore through the sky, and everywhere her palm passed, space collapsed and shrunk, and it seemed as if this palm had extracted all the energy in the sky. The strands of translucent and blazing devilish flames in Fan Yunlan's surroundings converged into numerous translucent skeletons with savage expressions that opened their mouths to emit exceedingly ear-piercing balls. When combined with the might of her palm, it caused her to seem even more like a female god of devils that dominated the world. When facing this palm strike, even Xianxia, who lay on the ground, couldn't help but arouse the despairing feeling of being unable to flee and being only able to await his doom. This was the might of a rebirth realm cultivator. Every single move and skill carried vast energy that was a mix between yin and yang and was merged with the heavens and the earth, and it was capable of drawing assistance from the force of nature to suppress one's enemies. The so-called force was extremely mysterious and couldn't be described with words. Simply speaking, after a rebirth realm cultivator condensed a rebirth will using the energies of yin and yang, the cultivator would be capable of comprehending the force that existed within the energies of the heavens and the earth. When this force fused into one's attacks, an extremely simple move was capable of causing one's enemy to feel the tiny feeling of being in opposition with the entire heavens and the earth, and it was a type of suppressive force that targeted one's body and mind. Some weak cultivators would possibly have their will to fight destroyed and their vital energy crumbled merely by facing this type of force executed by rebirth realm cultivators, and it was extremely formidable. This palm strike of Fan Yunlan's could be said to have fused the energy of this force in it and put into effect, causing it to be extremely terrifying. Bang! However, in the next instant, a shocking scene appeared. Fan Yunlan's palm that was like a shooting star that shot through the sky and was like a god plucking the stars and moon from the sky had actually been blocked by Xianxia. Xianxia gently slapped out, and as their palms collided with each other, she actually directly blocked Fan Yunlan's palm strike. This scene was taken seriously by Xianxia, and caused him to acutely notice that the entire strength within Fan Yunlan's palm seemed as if it had blasted into a boundless ocean and was completely dispersed. Whereas Qing Shui's body seemed as if it possessed a boundless ocean within that could store everything in the world. A cultivation at the seventh wheel of the rebirth realm is indeed formidable, but if it wasn't for me bitterly suppressing my strength for the sake of participating in the All-Star meeting 5 years from now, I'd have probably already advanced to the nether transformation realm long ago. Why would I be afraid of you? After Qing Shui withstood Fan Yunlan's palm strike, her expression was tranquil and indifferent without the slightest emotion, and she similarly flipped her hand before slapping out again. Instantly, the Dao insight within the misty rain Dao territory in the surroundings seemed to be absorbed by this palm strike. The billowing sound of waves sounded out in the sky, and a myriad of layers of waves gushed towards Fan Yunlan, who was above her. Rumble! The terrifying sound of true essence colliding with each other resounded out ceaselessly. Qing Shui and Fan Yunlan, these two experts that possessed terrifying cultivations, had truly become locked in combat. Qing Shui's cultivation was at the perfection stage of the Golden Core realm, and she was a reincarnated heavenly immortal that possessed unfathomable strength. Coupled with the fact that she was currently within her own Misty Rain Dao territory, she was actually on par with Fan Yunlan, who was at the rebirth realm. This scene caused Chun Shi's heart to rise and fall like the waves as well, and his blood surged. The rebirth realm was a terrifying existence that far surpassed the Golden Core realm. In the cultivation world of the Southern Territory, a rebirth realm cultivator was already capable of being respectfully addressed as ancestor by others. Killing Golden Core realm cultivators was casual, like killing chickens to rebirth realm cultivators. The difference between the two was like the difference between the heavens and the earth, worlds apart. They couldn't be compared. The higher one's cultivation realm was, the more difficult it was to surmount a realm and battle an opponent, as it was a delicate situation that related to the control of the energy of the heaven and earth and the understanding of the profundities of Tao insights. Both realms had an extremely great disparity between each other. However, at this moment, Qing Shui was instead capable of utilizing a cultivation at the Golden Core realm to go against Fan Yunlan, who was at the rebirth realm, and this had simply broken the inherent concept of the cultivation world to create a miracle. If the news of this battle were to be spread out, probably no one would believe it. Bang! 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 Explosions resounded out successively, and the Misty Rain Dao territory was completely blasted into bits by their terrifying strength. Subsequently, strand after strand of true essence collided with each other and exploded in the heavens and the earth, and all the plants and flowers in an area of a few hundred meters had instantly been obliterated into nothingness. Even numerous enormous cracks had been blasted open on the ground. During this time, even if a Golden Core realm expert were to enter within the undulations of their battle, the expert would be smashed into mush and lose his life instantly. But even though the two of them attacked without holding back in the slightest, they extremely cooperatively controlled the fluctuations of their strength, as they seemed to be deeply afraid of injuring the nearby Chun Shi. But it was utterly impossible for Chun Shi to flee. Not to mention he didn't have the slightest bit of strength in his entire body. Merely the aura of the two women that had firmly locked onto him caused fleeing to be bound to be in vain. Humph! Your strength has indeed exceeded my expectations. But it ends now. If a genius figure like you isn't killed as soon as possible, you'll surely become a great cause of calamity in the future. As she laughed coldly, Fan Yunlan's figure soared up abruptly into the sky. Behind her, the glow of an extremely pitch-black Dao territory gushed out, and it was like an eternal curtain of darkness, whereas a few thousand pairs of blood-red devilish eyes flickered in this curtain of darkness. When carefully counted, they just happened to number 3,000. Every single pair of devilish eyes were large like lanterns and emitted a variety of evil lights that were savage, bloodthirsty, ominous. Chun Shi felt his scalp go numb just from looking at it from afar, and it even felt as if an extremely cold thought that wanted to swallow his soul had been injected into his soul. He hurriedly took a deep breath as the various true essence of the Paramitha Dao insight unconsciously flashed within his mind, causing all the distracting thoughts within his mind to be instantly wiped out completely, and his mind immediately recovered its clarity. The Paramitha guides the souls for the sake of stabilizing the 6 paths of reincarnation, so it naturally wouldn't allow evil to swallow souls and go against nature. She faintly felt as if the Paramitha Dao insight innately countered all evil. He couldn't help but recall the scene when he annihilated Luo Xiao and Tung Huaxiu. The condemn evil brush slaughtered while the netherworld register instead swallowed all evil and cleansed the evil qi in the heavens and the earth to return peace to the world. The Paramitha Dao insight originated from the netherworld register, and it was possessed by that great figure's will brand. 3,000 devilish eyes? Soul Eater Dao territory? I heard the Blood Crescent Devil sect possessed a pool of blood that was inherited from the primordial era, and it contained 10 types of supreme grand Daos that belonged to the Devil sect. Unless it was a figure of great importance, one would utterly be unable to enter it to cultivate. Since you're able to cultivate the Soul Eater Dao territory, it looks like you're a core figure within the Blood Crescent Devil sect. Qing Shui's expression became serious as she spoke with a heavy tone. Miss Qing, you have great knowledge, but the more you know, the earlier you'll die. You're bound to die today. Fan Yunlan, who was completely covered in the black robe, stood within the Soul Eater Dao territory with flickering devilish eyes, and she seemed to be extremely strange and wicked. As soon as she finished speaking, the Soul Eater Dao territory moved abruptly. The 3,000 devilish eyes opened quickly, causing countless grayish brilliances to shoot out and tear through the sky, and they carried along a unique aura of destruction that was deathly, heavy, and swallowed souls. Hiss, as soon as this grayish deathly light shot into the sky, its shocking force of corrosion melted space to the point it was riddled with holes, and the sight of it was horrifying. Misty treasured mirror. Qing Shui's eyes squinted as an ancient copper mirror that was coiled with mist and dense runes revolved as it blocked before her. Roiling mist gushed within the face of the mirror as if it was a sea of mist and an ocean of clouds. She was at the perfection stage of the Golden Core realm, after all, and when facing the full force attack of Fan Yunlan, who was a rebirth realm expert, she didn't dare be careless. Hiss, 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 hiss under this attack of grayish lights that were dense like the rain. The misty treasure mirror trembled and cried intensely with pain, and the seas of mist and rivers of clouds that gushed out from the face of the mirror were melted in large patches. Misty treasured mirror? Humph! Obliterate! Fan Yunlan grunted coldly. The devilish qi within her entire body gushed out with a bang as her black robe flutters, and the 3,000 devilish eyes behind her seemed like blood was about to drip out from them as they once again shot out countless grayish lights that blasted down like a storm. Fan Yunlan had already exerted her entire strength with this attack, and she'd drawn support from the Soul Eater Dao territory to completely utilize her cultivation at the 7th wheel of the rebirth realm with the objective of killing Qing Shui in one go, in order to not leave behind a trace of a future trouble. OM. The misty treasured mirror once again cried intensely with pain. The aura of a treasure on the surface of the mirror became dim and dull, as if it would have its intelligence wiped out in the next moment and be melted into a pile of scrap. The misty treasured mirror had suffered a heavy injury, causing Qing Shui's condition to not be any better. Her countenance went pale, and she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, she understood that her cultivation was still inferior to her and opponent by a great deal in the end, and if she still didn't utilize some trump cards, then perhaps she'd possibly lose her life here today. When she thought of this, Qing Shui's beautiful appearance that was tranquil and indifferent revealed a trace of firmness and ruthlessness. With a command in her heart, a palm-sized jade talisman that was completely suffused with violet mist appeared in her hand. Swish! This jade talisman was refined from unknown materials. At the instant it was exposed in the air, countless arcs of lightning that were fine like hair gushed out from its surface, and they were like talisman tadpoles that lingered ceaselessly on the surface of the jade talisman. The terrifying aura that gushed out from the jade talisman caused the countless airflows that surged in the heavens and the earth to be blasted into dispersal, and it was as if they were avoiding the god of ghosts and didn't dare approach it. What talisman is this? How can it possess such a terrifying aura? Simply like an earthly immortal appearing here. Qian Shi's pupils constricted abruptly as deep astonishment arose within his heart. An earthly immortal jade talisman? Fan Yunlan knew that Qing Shui surely had a trump card to protect her life. But when Fan Yunlan saw the jade talisman emitted violet lights in Qing Shui's hand, it still caused her to be shocked in her heart and be unable to maintain her composure any longer. Strictly speaking, an earthly immortal jade talisman wasn't a talisman in the conventional meaning, but was instead a single-use magic treasure refined by an earthly immortal realm expert by using the expert's own blood essence. A single earthly immortal jade talisman required using up an earthly immortal realm expert's blood essence of 1,000 years, and it was equivalent to consuming 1,000 years of their lifespan. It was precisely because of this that its might was unimaginable, and it was roughly comparable to the full force attack of an earthly immortal realm expert. Not to mention Fan Yunlan, even a nether transformation realm expert was unable to resist the attack of an earthly immortal jade talisman. But the amount of earthly immortal jade talismans in the cultivation world was extremely few, and it could even be described as being rare like phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. After all, not every earthly immortal realm expert was willing to sacrifice their own blood essence and lifespan to refine a single-use magic treasure like this. Coupled with the materials used to refine an earthly immortal jade talisman being extremely rare and precious, to the point of only capable of being found by chance and not sought after, so every single earthly immortal jade talisman could be said to be a priceless treasure. Qing Xiui actually possessed an earthly immortal jade talisman in her possession, and exactly how much effort the White Crane sex put into fostering her, who was a reincarnated heavenly immortal, could be seen from this. Bang! A clear sound resounded out as the earthly immortal jade talisman that possessed markings that flickered with violet lightning was crushed. Instantly, the image of an old man in a black and luxurious robe appeared out of thin air. His spine was like a pillar that held up the sky, his aura vast like mountains and seas that shook the world. Every single step he took caused the heavens and the earth to seem as if they were shaken, and his terrifying might was peerless. Hiss! Chun Shi gasped when he saw this image. He clearly noticed that the aura of this image was even stronger than Bei Heng. Bei Heng was the supreme elder of the Wandering Cloud Sword sect, and he possessed a cultivation at the second level of the earthly immortal realm. However, even though this old man in black and luxurious robes that had appeared out of thin air was only an image, his aura surpassed Bei Heng, and how terrifying his true cultivation was could be seen from this. The White Crane sect's 5th level earthly immortal realm cultivator, Taoist Long He. Shit. This earthly immortal jade talisman was actually refined by this old fellow. No wonder it possesses a trace of the aura of the 5th wave of the heavenly tribulations, the Violet Death Heavenly Tribulation. Fan Yunlan cried out with shock, and her voice revealed terror. She didn't dare dally any longer before intending to flee, yet she never expected a lofty hand that blocked out the sun and covered the heavens to slap down onto her and easily shatter and disperse the Soul Eater Dao territory around her. And then it didn't lose momentum in the slightest as it smashed down towards her. If the strike were to hit her, then Fan Yunlan would surely be smashed into a pile of mush. Terrifying. The strength of this image was truly too terrifying, and it seemed supreme and crushed everything. This was the might of an earthly immortal jade talisman. Once it was utilized, it was comparable to the full force strike of an earthly immortal realm expert, and annihilating any rebirth realm cultivator was as easy as crushing an ant. Right at this critical moment, Fan Yunlan executed an unknown secret technique, causing her body to explode with a bang before transforming into a myriad of streams of bloody light that charged in every direction like bolts of lightning, and it caused others to be unable to clearly distinguish exactly which bloody light concealed her body. The full force strike of an earthly immortal realm expert was fully revealed by this earthly immortal jade talisman, and it was absolutely capable of shocking the universe, shattering space, and crushing all cultivators below the earthly immortal realm. Want to flee? The black and luxurious robed image shouted out with a cold and indifferent voice. Then its hands slightly cupped together as if he was holding a ball, and an unparalleled suction force gushed out, causing the plants and rocks on the ground to be unable to resist from being sucked up into the air. Chun Shi even noticed that the ground in a few hundred meters of his surroundings was pulled up and cracked apart before soaring up towards the hands of the image. Under the energy of this pair of palms that absorbed everything in the world, those countless bloody lights that fled swiftly towards all directions were instantly grasped by the shapeless suction force. No matter how they struggled, it was of no use, and they were instead gradually pulled towards the large hands. Bang! The palm of the black and luxurious clothed image sank as it slapped out once more. The timing of the change between suction and slapping down was grasped with extreme excellence, causing those countless bloody lights to seem as if they were moving to collide with the large hand. Want to completely annihilate me? Absolutely impossible. When faced with this scene, one of the countless bloody lights exploded once more with a bang, and it actually narrowly struggled free from the suction force before flashing out explosively. The direction it flew out was actually towards Xianxia. The instant before Xianxia could react, this bloody light had swiftly transformed into Fan Yunlan in black robes and a covered face. She raised her hand to lift up Xianxia, who lay on the ground, before tapping the tip of her foot on the ground, and a blood-will magic treasure gushed into appearance beneath her feet before swiftly flying towards the depths of the forest. Her speed was so swift that it had already surpassed the scope of the speed of sound. Rumble! Right when Fan Yunlan finished doing all this, the palm of the image in black and luxurious clothes had fiercely pressed onto the ground, causing an enormous pit that stretched out for an area of 300 m to instantly appear on the ground. The pit was bottomless, as if it was a naturally formed abyss, and it was extremely terrifying. Qing Shui, you actually dare injure me? I'll surely kill you in the future. Fan Yunlan's voice drifted out from the faraway depths of the forest, and it revealed billowing hatred. Qing Shui frowned as she looked at the depths of the forest. Even an earthly immortal jade talisman wasn't capable of wiping out the life of this devilish woman, and it indeed caused her to feel a trace of shock. But the trace of surprise flashed before vanishing. She didn't even spare a glance at the image in black and luxurious clothes in midair that gradually became weak until it vanished due to having consumed all its energy, and the tip of her foot tapped on the ground before her figure charged into the depths of the forest like a bolt of lightning. In Qing Shui's heart, using up an earthly immortal jade talisman was nothing to feel pity about, and it was already sufficient as long as it heavily injured Fan Yunlan, so she only had to chase after them before being able to easily kill Fan Yunlan. Most importantly, Xianxia was still in the hands of Fan Yunlan, and she would absolutely not allow another to take advantage of her prey. So long as she killed Fan Yunlan and seized the various treasures in Xianxia's possession, then the value would be so great that it far surpassed the value of a single earthly immortal jade talisman, and she was able to clearly distinguish this. Swoosh! In next to no time, her figure had already vanished within the depths of the forest. This forest was actually an extremely vast oasis within the depths of the oceanic desert, and its warm and damp air contained the aura of rot and decay mixed within, and this aura fermented in the entire forest. Ancient large trees that were over 30 meters in diameter could be seen everywhere in this forest. The vines and branches were as thick as buckets, and as they climbed in the forest, they completely blocked out the scorching sun in the sky, causing the forest to be exceedingly pitch black and ghastly. Most terrifying of it all was this forest was densely covered with poisonous fogs and miasma that were like multicolored and beautiful mists that revealed a dangerous aura, causing one's heart to palpitate with fear. Swoosh! Xianxia's body was held up in Fan Yunlan's hands as she flew swiftly towards the depths of the forest. He was unable to exert a bit of strength from his entire body, so he didn't continue struggling and carefully observed the surrounding environment along the way, as he hoped to be able to find a slight chance of survival in this hopeless situation. This observation instantly caused him to be secretly shocked, because all along the way he'd seen numerous ghastly skeletons. Some wore tattered armor, some only had half their bodies remaining, some were over 30 meters tall, some were enormous like mountains, some had lost their heads, and some were pierced with a variety of weapons like pikes, great axes, flying swords, and even a string of fist-sized jet black pearls. This skeleton was pierced with so many weapons, and the horrific state of his death caused Xianxia to be unable to bear the sight of it. All of these were the skeletons of demon beasts. Xianxia would absolutely not have misjudged. Even though those numerous corpses were of strange and grotesque shapes, they were not much different from the corpses of humans. It seemed as if a great battle that shook the heavens and the earth had once occurred within this forest, and innumerable formidable beings had fallen here. Could it be that this place is similar to the five-element ruins, and it's a battlefield of the great battle between fiends and gods that occurred a few tens of thousands of years ago? Chun, she pondered swiftly and was just intending to ask Ling Bai when he abruptly remembered that Ling Bai seemed to have not followed along with him. He was instantly shocked in his heart and looked around at his surroundings. Yet Ling Bai was nowhere to be found. Ling Bai saw me getting taken away, so he'll surely chase after. Perhaps he's rushing over here right now. At this moment, Chun, she could only console himself like this. Fan Yunlan's speed was extremely swift, and she seemed to have noticed something, causing her to flash out at full speed without the slightest intention of stopping. Moreover, along with them going deeper into the forest, her speed became even swifter, and she seemed like a flowing light that shuttled through the forest. The piercingly cold, strong winds that were caused by her swift speed were like blades as they sliced Xianxia's eyes, to the point they ached, and he had no choice but to close them. Chun, she sniffed and seemed to have smelled a fresh and mellow fragrance that was like fine wine. Even though the fragrance was faint to the point it was almost non-existent, it still caused the bones in his entire body to feel weak, and it was like a playful little hand was scratching his heart, causing a burning feeling to be unable to refrain from emerging from the depths. He was held in Fan Yunlan's hands, and as they flew, it was unavoidable that his body would touch Fan Yunlan's body. He didn't think anything about this earlier, yet at this moment, he clearly felt how supple and soft Fan Yunlan's slim waist and slender thighs were, causing him to wish for nothing more than to bury his head within them and savor their wonders to his heart's content. Wait, why am I thinking of these things at a time like this? Chun, she was instantly shocked in his heart, and he sobered up from these lewd thoughts. He faintly felt that it was the strand of fragrance that was causing it. This strand of fresh and mellow fragrance that was like fine wine seemed to possess a type of magic power that caused one to be unable to resist from arousing lustful thoughts in one's heart before it affected one's mind to the point of being controlled by lust. Chun, she opened his eyes and suddenly saw a large patch of azure fog that roiled ceaselessly enveloped the extreme distance, and it enveloped the entire forest within the fog. The plants and flowers within it were faintly visible, seeming to be dreamlike and illusory, and it seemed like a paradise of immortals. As they approached closer and closer to it, the fresh and mellow fragrance became more and more dense, to the point it was like hard liquor. Even if Chun, she stopped breathing, he still felt waves of weakness and numbness from his soul, and it was as if he'd sunken into a boundless ocean that was filled with fine wine. Fan Yunlan seemed to have noticed something was off as well, but she only slightly hesitated before charging into the azure fog that coiled and drifted around the forest like a sea of clouds. Bang! Chun, she felt his soul tremble intensely, and it seemed as if he'd entered another dimension. The azure fog was dense, to the point it was like inseparable honey. At the instant they entered into it, Fan Yunlan felt as if she'd fallen into a ball of cotton. No matter how much strength she used, she was unable to disperse the azure fog that coiled in her surroundings. Why is it like this? Even though I have less than 10% of strength I possessed at my prime, how can I possibly be even unable to disperse this fog? Fan Yunlan's heart tightened as she vaguely felt something was off. This fog in the surroundings was boundless, like a sea of azure clouds, and had no visible end. It was dreamlike and illusory, and it emitted a fresh and mellow fragrance that was like a fine and aged wine that had been stored for a long time, causing one's soul to become intoxicated. Fan Yunlan experienced numerous dangerous places on her path of cultivating until now, yet it was still the first time she'd seen a place like the one before her eyes. It felt like an illusory formation, yet she just happened to not detect a trace of the fluctuation of spirit energy. It seemed like an extremely beautiful sea of clouds and paradise of immortals, yet it revealed a peculiar aura from every corner. Cling, cling. A tune that was like wispy like the sounds of nature resounded out like a gurgling stream in the depths of the azure fog, and then every single inch of space within the surroundings and the entire heavens and the earth resounded with this graceful tune. It was like the cry of a lark, like a celestial maiden singing, do, re, mi, so, la. The purest tune in the heavens and the earth was twittered, chanted, and lingered as it played an indistinct tune that could cause one to be intoxicated and overwhelmed. It was like the hand of a lover stroking one's face, like a pair of young lovers who possessed great affection between each other indulging in desire while emitting moans that rose and fell on the bed, and their lust gushed out as they enjoyed each other to their heart's content. This tune was different from lewd sounds and extravagant words. It wasn't the slightest bit improper, and it instead seemed as if it was weaved from the desire at the bottom of the hearts of the myriad of living beings in the world, noiselessly infiltrating one's heart and causing one to unknowingly have the flames of passion at the depths of one's heart hooked out. What tune is this? Where's it coming from? Fan Yunlan felt a ball of raging flames of desire being lit ablaze within the depths of her heart, causing her entire body to become hot, limp like water, soft, and weak. Since cultivating until now, she'd never once felt passion, as the 7 emotions and 6 sensory pleasures were simply a trifling matter to this disciple of the devil sect, and it was utterly unable to affect her Tao heart. However, at this moment, no matter how she shut off her 6 senses and caused herself to be blind to everything in her surroundings, she was still unable to stop this strand of tune from slipping into her. That strand of tune was like a shapeless energy that directly entered the heart before causing her Tao heart to be in chaos. She even noticed that when combined with this strand of tune, the fragrance that was effused out from the azure fog silently entered her body from every single one of her pores. The clear and mellow fragrance that was contained within the fog was like the most intense aphrodisiac in the world, causing her blood and vital energy to burn violently in the flames of desire. No matter if it was the tune or this mellow and clear fragrance, they were extremely powerful, shapeless, and impossible to resist. In only an instant, various illusions had appeared before Fan Yunlan's eyes. This was the sign of heart devils arising and imminent chi deviation. Who? Right at this moment, a string of heavy and rapid breathing sounded out by Fan Yunlan's ears. When she lowered her head to look, she saw that Chen Shi whom she held in her hands had his eyes closed tightly, his face flushed red, his chest rising up and down intensely, and his entire body seemed as if it was trembling uncontrollably. Obviously, this fellow was just like her. His Tao heart had suffered the erosion of the tune and fragrance, causing desire to break out within his heart, and he was vigorously resisting this exceedingly strange energy. There's something wrong with this fog. Get away from me. Quickly. Chen Shi's hoarse voice emitted a dysphoric tone like a wild beast that was trying hard to restrain its bloodthirsty thoughts, and when combined with his warped face, he seemed to be extremely savage. When they just entered into the azure fog, Chen Shi had noticed that something was wrong. However, just like Fan Yunlan, he was similarly unable to resist the tune and the fresh and mellow fragrance that gushed ceaselessly into the depths of his heart. Moreover, unlike Fan Yunlan, his body was heavily injured, his true essence completely dried up, and his entire body didn't have the slightest bit of strength. Thus, the temptation he encountered was even more ferocious and direct. If it wasn't for his Tao heart being tempered to the point of being as hard as a rock long ago, his thoughts would have probably been controlled by the flames of passion long since, causing him to suffer from chi deviation and be completely reduced into a wild beast of desire. You can't escape within this fog either. All right, I'll let you go for the time being. Fan Yunlan knew the situation was critical as well, and she resolutely let go of Chen Shi without a moment's delay before sitting down cross-legged at the side to use her entire strength to resist the scorching flames of passion that were burning in her heart. Chen Shi lay on the ground and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. When he was held in Fan Yunlan's hands earlier, it was unavoidable for his body to rub on Fan Yunlan, and coupled with the surging lust within his heart, the feeling of the flames of lust burning within him caused his senses to almost collapse. So both of you are here? Why aren't you fleeing? However, before Chen Shi could put his mind and soul into resisting the desire welling within him, Qing Shui's indifferent and cold voice suddenly sounded out by his ears, and when he opened his eyes to look, sure enough, he saw that Qing Shui had entered into the azure fog. It's you, Qing Shui. Could it be that you haven't noticed that something is odd about this azure fog? Why don't we stop fighting for now? We'll have a battle once we escape this azure fog. How about it? Fan Yunlan swiftly stood up, and her clothes fluttered as she spoke with a voice that revealed a trace of seriousness. This azure fog is odd indeed, but I only have to kill you and I can leave this place safely all the same. Why should I give you the chance to catch your breath? If I'm not wrong, After suffering the strike from the earthly immortal jade talisman, you probably only have less than 10% of your strength remaining now. So wouldn't it be a pity if I don't seize this opportunity to kill you? She hadn't finished speaking when Xianxia had already attacked without the slightest hesitation. Her figure flashed out like a bolt of lightning. Her fists were like dragons as she soared into the air like a crane and headed towards Fan Yunlan. Her actions were straightforward and direct, and they revealed her resolution to kill. Chirp! The force of the fist surged like the clear cry of a crane, revealing agility and fluidity within its heavy and thick energy, and the myriad of fist imaged actually struck out into the vast phenomenon of a myriad of cranes converging into a cloud and a myriad of pine trees bowing in respect. The white crane sex Dao grade martial technique? Pine crane universe fist? Fan Yunlan seemed as if she was enraged, and she stopped bitterly suppressing the surging flames of passion in her heart as her figure flashed, and she slammed out with a fierce and powerful punch technique. Compared to the agile and condensed pine crane universe fist of Xianxia's, her fist seemed to be extremely powerful and fierce. Her fist was like a sledgehammer that hammered the heavens and smashed the earth, annihilating everything in all directions, and it struck onto the sky to the point of causing buzzing sounds like a great bell to blast out. This was the Blood Crescent Devil Sex infamous Blood Shadow Warhammer fist that was similarly a Dao-grade martial technique. A fist struck out with this technique was like a warhammer smashing out, and it stressed upon unparalleled speed and power, causing it to be peerlessly ferocious. Bang! 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 These two women were locked in battle once again, their moves ruthless and resolute without holding back in the slightest, and every attack struck towards the vital points of the other as they each held the thought of wanting to swiftly exterminate the other. Fan Yunlan only had less than 10% of her strength remaining, yet when she fought with her life on the line, she exploded out with boundless potential, causing her to actually be on par with Xianxia and be locked in battle. Xianxia lay on the floor while unable to move, and as he watched the two women fight with their lives on the line, the flames of passion and lust within his heart didn't reduce, but increased instead, and it possessed the trend of being more and more intense. While Fan Yunlan and Xianxia fought, the force of their fists collided and frequently shattered each other's clothes, revealing skin that was snow-white like jade and faintly visible, and they revealed seductive sexiness. Especially Fan Yunlan, who'd always covered her face, had the hat she wore torn apart by Xianxia at the beginning of the battle, revealing a drop-dead gorgeous appearance. Her brows were black like ink with a fine nose and cherry lips. Her eyes seemed like a pair of deep springs that flowed with waves of water that were clear and overflowing, and her snow-white and smooth skin was glossy like water and seemed as if water would drip out with a slight pinch of her skin. At this moment, her hair was disheveled instead. Her skin suffused with a layer of scarlet like the petals of a rose, and her clothes were damaged, causing her graceful and seductive figure to reveal heart-stirring beauty. Xianxia was like this as well. In the eyes of the world, she seemed like a celestial maiden that rode the waves that emerged from the misty rain. Her appearance was like a drawing and beautiful beyond compare. Her figure graceful, sacred, and inviolable. She was simply the goddess that couldn't be violated in the hearts of everyone. But now, her thick hair was disheveled, her clothes damaged. Her exquisite and beautiful oval face was suffused with a wisp of a seductive and alluring flush, and she emitted an indescribably charming aura. Obviously, the two of them had suffered the effect of the tune and fragrance in the azure fog that drew out the flames of desire within their hearts while they fought, and it had affected them seriously. This was because the two of them were fighting with all their might and were not suppressing the lust in their hearts any longer, nor did they shut their six senses tightly, causing the vital energy in their bodies to be without the slightest barrier between them and the azure fog. The consequence was the tune and fragrance had seized this opportunity to enter their bodies before continuing to cause the flames of desire in their bodies to skyrocket at a shocking rate. Even though both of them knew it would be extremely dangerous if this went on. For the sake of killing the other, they gritted their teeth and fought without end, and they didn't have the slightest intention of reaching a compromise. Along with the battle growing more and more intense, the damaged clothes on Xianxia and Fan Yunlan grew more and more, causing numerous large patches of skin that were extremely snow-white and tainted with scarlet red to be exposed. And it was extremely seductive. The scene was charming and dreamlike, yet revealed a sense of slaughter because they were still fighting and their battle grew more and more intense. Chun, she always possessed little understanding about the topic of men and women. He'd always been pure of heart and without desire since cultivating until now, and he'd never coveted the joys of passion and lust. But at this moment, when he saw the appearances of the two women, it was as if a large flame was instantly lit within his heart, and it was simply about to incinerate his body into nothingness. This was the signs of him soon to be unable to suppress his own lust. Cling, cling in the azure fog. The faint tune that caused one to be intoxicated and overwhelmed grew louder and louder, and it was as if it resounded in the depths of one's heart and wanted to release all the passion and desire within one's heart. Whereas the mellow and fresh fragrance in the fog grew more and more denser, causing one to become intoxicated. Thump, thump, two muffled sounds resounded out. Qing Xiui and Fan Yunlan, who were in battle, seemed as if the strength within their bodies were completely extracted, causing them to stagger to the ground while feeling weak and powerless, and they were unable to stand up no matter how they struggled. As luck would have it, Chun Shi lay at the center between the two women. He was able to clearly see the limitless sexiness revealed from their fronts, and even smell the traces of unusually sweet fragrance emitted from them. MNNN. Fan Yunlan seemed to have lost all reason as she moaned lightly. Her gaze suddenly locked onto the nearby Chun Shi as her eyes burned with scorching flames of passion that almost caused fluids to gush out from her body.